Afrofish OG.
What is going on, everyone? It is another edition of Afro in the Know. You guys know how it goes. The podcast where we talk about anything, everything, and all the stuff in the middle. And today I have a very special guest with no introductions. I'm actually just going to kind of keep myself out of this one, and I'll let you introduce yourself on here because it's just the best way to do it.
So. All right. Well, hello, everyone. I am JD Brubaker. I am a dark fantasy fairy tale retelling author. That is who I am, and I am really excited to be here.
I'm happy that you are here. I know we had time before, but things got messed up. I actually know I know at least one other person off the top of my head right now who is like super stoked for this podcast. She writes as well, so she was super excited about this. I just let her know the podcast is up, but I'm stoked because myself. I know like usually it's gaming related, but a lot of things that I know people don't know about myself obviously is I like to write. Not the great, but I do like to write, and seeing like someone else who's an author and who's gone through the ringer, who's done everything, it's incredible to me because it's so much tougher than people give it credit for. Like, damn, I don't know how the fuck people like Dr. Seuss was able to make something as simple as and is still able to keep going.
I know. It's insane.
Oh, it makes me crack up because I'm sitting here trying to like put fucking dialogues together, and this motherfucker's like one fish, two fish, and I'm like, damn, could have been me. Well, I want to hear. We'll start off with. I know you just had your second novel.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I'll. You got the floor on this one. I want you to say what it's about, and I'm excited to hear.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah. So my sequel novel just came out. It is a retelling of the Little Red Riding Hood fairy tale. It's the second book in my Hands of the Order series. And essentially in that series, I take classic fairy tales and I retell them where the main character in those fairy tales are an assassin. Okay. So the first book, A Kiss of Glass, was a retelling of Cinderella, where she goes to the ball to kill the prince, not to be with the prince. She's a deadly assassin. And then the sequel, Little Red Riding Hood, is seeking revenge for the murder of her mother. And she's actually a bounty hunter, but she was trained to be an assassin. I have this kind of Assassin's Guild that is made up of all women, and part of the books you see the training that they all go through to become assassins. You see a little bit of maybe their childhood, family life, whatever, and then there's kind of another storyline where you see the present day, and the present day storyline is usually where the retelling is kind of happening. So that's kind of just a overview of the series in a nutshell. But I'm real excited to have the sequel novel out finally because it took over 2 years to write. Almost 2 years to write.
That's still. I mean, where did you even get the concept of like just like, all right, it'd be cool if Cinderella was like an assassin. Like, just where does that stem from? Like, because I know myself, it comes from different places, but it's always interesting to hear other people where they get the inspiration.
Absolutely. I was in undergrad and I was studying creative writing in my undergraduate degree. And one day I just, this idea came to me of like a ballroom, a masquerade is going on. Everyone is kind of in costume. And I thought that would be a really interesting setting for someone to commit regicide. What if someone at a masquerade ball was going to kill a member of the royal family? And as I was writing the story, I was like, this is a Cinderella retelling. So it started out as just a short story. It was published online several years ago. And then I sent the story to a friend of mine who was in my MFA program, and he read it and said, this is a great short story, but it should be a novel. And I was like, nope, that's not happening. I am not spending a novel's worth of writing on this story. It's not going to happen. I'll extend it a little bit. I'll expand it to be a longer, maybe novelette to novella, but it's not going to be a full novel. Spoiler, it turned into a full novel.
So I guess for those who also do not know, the difference between, like you said, like, between a short story, like a novelette, and an actual novel, what would that be?
So a short story is usually around 7,500 words. So depending on how much dialogue there is in the story, that could be anywhere between 7 to 15 pages. A novelette is going to be anything between around 10,000 words to 20,000 words. So that could be, maybe 40 to 50, 60 pages. A novella is longer still. It's 20,000 words to 40,000 words. You're looking at, a little over 100 to 150 pages. And then a novel is considered anything that is 50,000 words or more. 50,000 tends to be a shorter novel. You're looking at probably maybe a little around 200 pages. Fantasy is usually well over 100,000 words. So you're talking, 400 plus pages.
I mean, that makes sense. I mean, with fantasy, it's a lot of it's, between world building a magic system.
Yes.
And so on and so forth, which is never easy.
No,
it really isn't. It's I find it kind of humorous a little bit, because like on the surface you're like, oh yeah, like if this guy could shoot fire out of his fingertips, and then you're like, yeah, but why? And like once you start getting into the whys, you're like, I think that's where I had to struggle with. I was like, oh shit.
Yeah. Absolutely, I get that.
It is, and it's I have to admit, there's a sense of like, there's a lot of fun I think that comes with it, is like discovering as you're going along. And I'm assuming that's probably how you got with yours as well.
Absolutely. I think that is one of my most favorite things about writing, is that I get to discover stuff as I'm writing. Anyone who's ever written will understand this, but there's things that you don't actually realize are setting up for other things. So you'll get, 3/4 of the way through your book, and you'll realize that, a character needs to go do XYZ. And then you've already set that up, chapters and chapters and chapters before. Or you reveal that they have some kind of magical power, and you've already accidentally hinted that they have that power. Like the way that authors foreshadow unintentionally, I think, is absolutely brilliant. And then it looks like we're the smartest people ever, because no one else knows that we did it accidentally.
That's actually a really good one. That's really interesting, because for a lot, a lot of people's favorite, whether it's books, it's TV shows, like you mentioned, foreshadowing is something that I feel like a lot of writers are just like, oh shit. Like,
yeah. Yes. And it's so much fun to get to that place in your own work where you go, oh my God, I can't believe that I actually set this up already. That's amazing. Yeah, it's great.
Oh, absolutely. And so I gotta ask, like, right off the top of my head, when it comes to because both of your novels, right? Who's your favorite character off the top of your head? Like,
my favorite character off the top of my head. Oh my goodness. Out of both books, it would have to be Mother Hydra. She's one of the teachers in the Assassin's Guild. She's very dark and mysterious. And her motivations are perhaps a little bit suspect. And yeah, I'd say she's probably my favorite. I love writing her. She's so much fun.
I found like I find morally just a lot of characters who are like morally ambiguous are probably the most interesting. I find them very difficult to write too, because like I don't
Yeah.
know, maybe it's just me, but they feel like sometimes they clash with like my own moral code, and so it's as I'm writing, I'm
Yeah.
like, I wouldn't, they would, but I wouldn't. So like, how do I write that? Like it's
Yeah, that is, I think, one of my most complicated aspects of writing is character development. Figuring out not only what a character would do, but why they would do it. And if they do something out of character, what's the justification for that?
right,
Um, and morally ambiguous characters, in some ways, can be easy to write because they're kind of wild cards anyway. But at the same time, they're also very difficult to write because you can't just have them doing anything. Like
right,
it still has to make sense given what we already know from the character. Um, and especially too in these books, because they're all assassins, they're all kind of morally ambiguous, and so finding ways to make them unique so that it's not just the same cookie cutter shape of an assassin
right.
has been really, really difficult. But then also weaving in like, okay, well, one of the reasons I love Mother Hydra is because in A Kiss of Glass, she is the only teacher that actually believes in Nausea, the main character of the first book. She goes to bat for her, she supports her, she kind of fights for her. And in this setting where all of these women are kind of harsh and cruel, finding reasons to give one of them or two of them a little bit more compassion can be complicated, right? And the great thing too, though, is that readers, they tend to be really good at suspending their disbelief. Unless it's really outlandish and you haven't earned a certain thing, they'll usually go with you. They'll usually be like, okay, I'll go with you on this one. I'll assume that this makes sense. And as long as you can support it and explain it later, they're fine.
That makes sense. That's an interesting way to say that. Like they have to like almost like earn their suspending a disbelief. That
Yeah.
is, I've never thought about that before because it's really easy to just kind of throw your character into whatever situation without actually explaining why. And have you came across that as you're writing, like you part with you're like, oh fuck. Like, like kind of made like a okay, I don't know if they would actually do this, and then kind of rewrote it in a way. Have you ever came across that yourself?
Yeah, there's definitely things that I have tried to kind of pigeonhole characters into because I thought the concept was cool.
Hmm.
But if it doesn't fit the character, it doesn't matter how cool the concept is. So for example, and this isn't really giving anything away about the second book, but in the second book, Scarlet, Little Red Riding Hood, her kind of internal struggle as she's going through training is that she really doesn't believe in the cause of this organization. It's called the Order. She does not believe in its cause. And by the time she graduates training, she has decided she's not going to be an assassin. That was something that was not originally in the first couple of drafts. Originally, I had it that she was going to graduate like everyone else. She was going to go on these missions. She was going to assassinate people, and it was going to kind of haunt her, and she was going to decide to leave. But I wrestled with that because it didn't fit the way that she is very kind of she's so often in opposition to what she's trained to do that it didn't make sense that she would ever actually go and then take another human life. So kind of like figuring out, is this something she has to wrestle with outside of training or inside of training? As the writer, you just you have to learn those instincts with your characters.
I mean, that makes sense. I mean, because you're essentially just playing God in a way.
Yeah.
And that's really interesting too, because it makes sense to like, in a sense, it throws because you said she's the main character of the second novel,
Yes.
so it would make sense, yes, that like it's a twist on everything.
Yeah.
And so that's I like that a lot. And I think when it comes to just the writing process itself, you know, for you, like one of the things that you mentioned, it was like, it just sounds cool. And, you know, I mean, that's where our most inspiration starts. It's just, this sounds awesome. It doesn't have
Right.
to make sense. But when, like, I think to another thing is also taking out the, you know, finding out what works and what doesn't. Is that typically the hardest part for you? Like something that you might find really interesting, but you're just like, ah, damn, it just does not work.
Yes. Excuse me. The revision and editing process is very difficult because something can be really cool. It can fit the character. It can advance the plot even. And it still might not belong in the book. I think it was my third or fourth draft was like 107, it was like 160 something thousand words. It was well over like 550 pages. It was too long. I was like, this is way too long. It needs to be cut down. Things need to be cut out. And sometimes you're going to find easy things. There will be whole sections of chapters where you're like, nope, this isn't needed. I can cut it. But there will inevitably be scenes that you love, scenes that you have slaved over, that you have just worked so hard to kind of perfect and tweak. And you will be in love with those scenes and you will decide that they can't stay. Now, for anyone who wants to be a writer, I do want to kind of give a tip. Don't ever just delete something.
Oh, no.
Don't ever just delete it. Cut it, copy it, paste it in another document, because you can use that stuff as, you know, extended content at the end of the book. You can use it in a newsletter. You can use it in a different book later down the line. So never delete anything. Just remove, if it doesn't belong in the manuscript, just move it to a different document.
That's fair. I remember it's so interesting. There was one of the video games that I played was Civilization. And there was they always use different quotes, and I'm quoting this one probably terribly, but I think they said like something about a sculptor knows his work is finished, not when there's nothing left to add, but when there's nothing left to take away.
Yeah.
And when it comes to writing, there's nothing more true.
Yeah. 100%.
It's so true. Just to like drop like, I mean, and then this character's got fucking superpowers. Why? Because it's awesome. And sometimes sometimes it works. Sometimes like you'll just find like a holy shit. I didn't expect that to. But it feels like that's rare. Like it's rare for it to work like that. Yes.
Usually you need something more than just that it's a cool concept to justify it. As long as it advances the plot or continues character development or maybe increases tension between two characters, usually that's justification enough. But I mean, we've all seen how, you know, superhero movies lately have kind of just been based on, hey, this is a cool concept. And
this, yeah.
They don't land because basing things on whether or not it's cool loses the human element. And we need to be able to emotionally connect to the content that we consume. Otherwise, we're bored. So yeah, that's kind of how I look at it.
That's a good way to look at it. And like that's probably one of the reasons why I actually really enjoyed this new Superman so much. Actually, because
it was so good.
it really was. Like, oh my gosh, I loved every second of it.
I did too. Yeah, and I don't like Superman. I have never liked Superman as a superhero. I have always thought that he was boring. I did not like Man of Steel. I did not like Batman versus Superman. Hated those movies. But I loved this new Superman. I thought it was fantastic. I loved him and Lois. I loved his perspective on the world. I loved the internal struggle that they gave to him. I thought it was really refreshing and relatable. Oh, it was so good.
He reminded me a lot of the Superman I grew up with.
Yeah.
Like, one of just trying to do the best he can no matter the situation.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed that a lot. And I actually sent that out question too, because obviously you're author, you write. Do you see things differently now from like other sources of media than you normally would, like let's say just like a regular moviegoer would.
I think so. I think, as writers, we have to be critical. You can't be a successful writer if you can't be critical of your own work. And when you get into the habit of being critical of your own work, you then, of course, become critical of other people's work. And, it's kind of inevitable too that you're going to compare kind of your own writing and the things that you would do in a story versus things that other people would do. I would definitely rewrite both of the last 2 seasons of Game of Thrones because they were steaming hot garbage. So like,
I think you and many people, I think I might leave the Starbucks cup in there though, because I mean, that means Starbucks is canon in the Game of Thrones. Like,
I watched that live. I watched it like the moment that it aired. I watched that episode and I was screaming at the TV. I was like, it's a Starbucks cup. That's a Starbucks cup. Yeah.
I can't imagine like them in the final cut and just like them watching it and slowly turning at the one dude who left the cup there. Like,
yes. Yes, that's hilarious.
I know it's not much, but it cracks me up when I think about it every time. And
I know
that's how I feel with like a lot of times with the Star Wars sequels. Like I don't hate the Star Wars sequels. I've grown to appreciate them for what they are.
Sure.
But I don't think they're great, but I also don't think the prequels are great either.
Fair point. Fair point.
I go back and I'm like, I love these because they are fun, not because they are good.
Yeah.
And that's what I will
and
always...
that's kind of an interesting thing too, because I would say that the detriment to both the prequel and sequel trilogies is the writing, but for completely different reasons. Because in the prequel trilogy, the writing is so unrealistic. Like the dialogue is very tortured. It's very forced. It's not natural. It doesn't feel like it flows.
Like a soap opera than anything.
Yes, very much. It's very much like a soap opera in terms of dialogue and storyline. But the sequels are just messy. They're very messy. They're very scattered. You can tell that there's not one or a team of people working together on each movie. You can tell it's different people writing it. Mm-hmm. And it just goes to show that even with these massive budgets, like writing continues to be extremely important in the quality of content that's produced.
Exactly. And I think, I love using the Star Wars ones as examples because they are like, I mean, they are one of those, like when I think of like the old the prequels and the whole ending with Anakin and Obi-Wan, and like I don't know if you've seen the Rock version of it. The Rock, okay, I'll send that to you. Someone made like a Rock AI from it, and it is the most dope thing ever. Oh my gosh.
Oh my god.
But like it's crazy to me because it is like no matter how big budget of a movie you have, boom boom explosions, whatever. This is why I think always the Michael Bay movies like enticed people because they were why do you go to a movie? But when critics break it down and stuff, you're like, no, this is not it. It's basically the equivalent of just taking 2 Transformer figures and being like, make a movie.
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah. And again, like cool concepts can be great starting points, but you need more.
Yeah.
Like even if the story itself is bad, even if the story itself is not good, it's very weak, it's very cliche. If you have good characters, if you have, characters that people really love, you'll be fine. But so often those movies, they're such cliches. They're stereotypes. It's nothing new. It's nothing original. It's nothing that hasn't been done before. That's why horror is one of my absolute favorite genres, is because horror continues to churn out new things. They're not all good, but at least it's new. It's refreshing material.
I've seen 3 horror movies this year. My wife won't go to see horror with me, which is fine because it means I have a reason to just go out and do something. Because I've seen Together, which I thought was an interesting take.
It was.
It was all right. Like I don't think it was anything that wowed me or whatever. I'm not gonna lie. Like moving pieces underneath the skin was a little odd, but I've watched enough anime to just see like I'm like none of this shit surprises me. Like,
Right.
I watched him, and him was interesting.
Okay.
The football one, which I
Yeah.
never thought merging sports and horror would be a thing until. I mean, I've suffered enough concussions where I should know that's a thing. But like,
Leave it
but
to Jordan Peele.
yeah, and you know the crazy thing was like it feels like a Jordan Peele, but it was not Jordan Peele.
Okay.
It was Justin Tipping, his name was, and like it's one of those
Jordan
where
Peele didn't do it?
no, it was he produced it, his production.
Oh, he didn't write it. Okay.
No,
Okay.
but it does have that feel of it, and so I
Okay.
felt like when I saw it, I know it got really mixed reviews, but like overall, I think it's one of those that's going to be a cult classic.
Okay.
Like, give it a few years, people are going to look back and be like, oh, you know, I thought I judged this movie a little too harshly. No, it's
Okay.
still okay, but it's shot so good. Marlon Wayans, I never got to watch Requiem for a Dream, right? So I never got to see him in that, but seeing him in this, and I'm like, oh damn, like he's really good at this. Like, it's I love seeing actors who are typically comedians in serious roles. I love.
Yeah, same, absolutely.
Oh, it's so good. And the third one was Good Boy, and
I haven't seen that one yet.
that is really good. It's not long. It's only like an hour and 10 minutes long. Like, it is really short. It took them 3 years to do it, because there's only like 4 characters in the whole movie, one including the dog, and like the dog is like it's real, obviously real dog. Like but like they the guy who wrote it or directed it, him and his wife, like it's their dog. So like a lot of the stuff they have to, he's like, I was watching an interview with them and they're like, the stuff we have to do has to work for their dog. So like, and I'm like, like that's skills to being like, it is so good. Like I would recommend it wholeheartedly. Okay. Oh my God, it was so good. But yeah, I agree. Like when it comes to horror is one that constantly has to innovate, because you can get Friday the 13th sequels. Like
right.
Like I don't know about you, but I can only watch someone get sliced so many times before I'm like,
okay. Well, I mean, there's so many Saw movies, there's so many Scream movies, like so many Final Destination movies.
Yeah, how many times can you Rube Goldberg a machine until eventually?
I know. I did enjoy the most recent Final Destination. I thought it was pretty good. It was not.
Was that Bloodlines?
Yes. Yeah. Bloodlines. Yeah. No, nothing can beat the first one. The first one was just epic in so many ways.
That's true. I mean, the first one might be epic, but the second one's what traumatized everyone.
Yes. Oh my gosh. The second one was definitely traumatizing. Yes.
The log truck. I'm like, it's so funny because that log truck scene, even like people, any millennials and older will just be like, yeah, nah, as soon as they see the log truck, it's a speed pass.
Yeah. And I live in the Pacific Northwest, so we have lots of log trucks here.
I can only imagine. Yeah, Wisconsin's kind of similar though too. As soon as I see one, I'm like, I book it past. I'm not taking no risk. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Going around there. So so one of the things I guess is like when you are like watching, like when you are watching a movie from your perspective, are you trying to just trying to like kind of shut your brain off and enjoy it, or like can you not do that? So you're kind of just like, okay, I'm starting to analyze it even though I don't want to.
That's a great question. I think it depends on the movie. There are some movies that I go into it and I know that maybe there's not going to be much to analyze. Wicked, for example. I knew nothing really about the musical.
Good.
Huh?
So good.
Oh my God. So good. I cannot wait for the sequel, or part 2. But like I went into that movie really not thinking that there was going to be much to analyze. It was going to be a fun musical. I was sobbing by the end of that movie. And like, I completely underestimated it. I was analyzing like so many things about like childhood wounds and like abandonment wounds and interpersonal relationships. Like there was so much going on in that movie that I loved. And then there are movies that I go into them thinking that there's going to be a lot to analyze, and then there's not much. Eddington, for example, I loved Midsummer and Hereditary. And I thought that I was going to like Eddington, and I did not. I really did not. The production quality of the movie I thought was very good. The message, if there even is one, I thought was garbage. I really did not like that.
I don't think I've ever seen Eddington.
It came out this year. It was it's supposed to take place during COVID out in like, I think Arizona or Utah. And it's about, it's kind of this like political rivalry between Pedro Pascal's character, who is the mayor of the town, and then Joaquin Phoenix's character.
Oh, okay.
And it was like a roller coaster that you had to keep getting off of and then getting back on it, but like you had to walk across it. There's so many moments where like you get into the movie and then it veers, but not in the well-written sense. It's like, we're going to start on this plot line. Oh no, now we're going to drop you into this plot line. Nope, now we're going to drop you into this plot line. I couldn't keep up with it. And like there's a lot of really horrific ways that they portray like the Black Lives Matter movement, and I don't know what his point was with a lot of it. Some people say that it was a satire. I do not get that vibe. Maybe I didn't understand it, but yeah, I went into it thinking that there was going to be like a lot of deep kind of, allegory or metaphor, and I was just lost the whole time.
And that's interesting that you mentioned that, because when it comes to like being able to portray a message through, I think overall, for me personally, I find that to be the most difficult part, because everything in your story needs to wrap around that. So like for those who can do it correctly, it's like, holy shit, or they can talk about multiple things. First thing I think is like Attack on Titan was one that I watched, the anime that I watched, and I was like, holy shit, this is amazing. But and I've noticed, and I don't want to be one of those people to be like, people don't have media literacy, but I've also noticed that is definitely a thing. People seem to really lack it. And I don't understand why.
I think a big part of it is that reading has fallen off in this country. Our literacy statistics are awful. We rank like 36th in literacy in the world. It's really bad. Reading just isn't prioritized. I think that there's also an access issue. You've got, programs that are, being defunded. You have libraries that are shutting down, and without reading, you don't develop those critical thinking skills. You don't develop those, comprehension skills. And I think that really impacts people's ability to engage meaningfully with the content they consume.
That's fair. I mean, we're seeing, I think it was when Star Wars Andor came around in season 2. And there was people finally being like, I just can't side with the Empire. And my first initial reaction is like, I'm sorry, what?
So where have you been?
I'm like, what? Like you are the definitely type of person that watched a World War II movie and were like, I don't know what that fucking line thing is, but I don't think I like it anymore. Like, like, holy God.
Exactly.
It just had me my brain just cracking. And I think we're seeing that more and more now with people not being able to really understand what they're reading, what they're seeing. Because I go back to the Star Wars thing too, big on it, because despite its writing, there are a lot of themes to Star Wars.
Yeah, there are.
And I've noticed I call it the "it's not that deep" crowd. The ones who I just assume are only there for like the pew pew laser swords and like you know, when they see something that's not red versus blue, they just don't understand. And I'm like, it's
Yeah.
weird to me because I'm like, these people are in their 30s, 40s. Like, you watched basically a whole democracy fall and just had no clue about it at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. Like, you know, I was gonna say, is it frustrating for you to see, like, as that kind of keeps going? Is it, because I know it's frustrating for myself.
It is very frustrating, especially too, because like as a writer, I do think that I bear a responsibility to not just write entertainment, but also to tackle issues. As a queer person, you know, there are queer themes in my work. There's a lot of representation of marginalized communities in my work because I believe that that is important. And if you're ever on the book talk side of TikTok, there are lots and lots of people who they make the argument, reading isn't political. Why are you make reading political? Reading has always been political. It has never not been political. Even if you're only looking at who has had access to books over the course of history, that alone would be enough to make it political. But then there's the conversation of who was allowed to write and publish books, and then who was allowed to get the education that allowed them to write and publish books. I mean, it is connected to everything. There's a reason why, you know, Hitler and the Nazis burned books. And it's because the information in them was dangerous to the ideology that they were pushing. So it really does bother me the way that there just isn't that critical engagement. And I understand the impulse, the desire to try and escape, right? Escapism is definitely a thing. I totally understand wanting to just sit down and read a book and just turn your brain off and enjoy. I get that, but not every book needs to be that. And even in those books, like there's this series I'm reading right now. It's full of dragon smut, and it is the most amazing. Like, it is the most fun that I have had reading in a while. And even in that book, there's like conversations about gender. There's conversations about like power dynamics in between people. And some people might say I'm reading into it, but you can't write about humans without writing about those things. So it's kind of just inherently there.
No, and that makes a lot of sense. I mean, I look at some of the, even like some of the books I look at when I read about as a child, like first, like Goosebumps was a big one, and those always had some sort of, even if they were easy to digest, some sort of theme, some sort of something to get them going. And you know, another one that actually, the reason why I got even started writing in the first place was actually Del Toro Quest.
Okay.
That was what really got me into it, and it just was like enamored with the concept of fantasy and these powers. And then I realized that Del Toro Quest is the fantasy version of the Infinity Stones, and so like,
right.
And so I was like, this is just, it's so, there's so much. And I think the crowd of just, it's not that deep, I think really does a disservice to just like any kind of literacy.
Yeah.
And you know, I feel like with people being told that things are not as deep as they should be, that's why we're seeing issues that we see today.
Yes.
You know, I just had a conversation with another friend of mine earlier today about this same stuff, and I'm like, the reason why this stuff is bothering you is because you actually do care. You can say that you don't, but inside you actually do, and you have to bring that out.
Right.
And you know, stories, I think, are, in my opinion, are the best way to get across messages.
Oh yeah.
Whether it's older generation, younger generation, we see that in anime all the time. There's a reason why One Piece is being used in legitimate like, I won't say propaganda, but legitimately like signs of freedom.
Right.
Because that whole anime is literally about freedom. It's fighting a tyrannical government. And I'm like, holy shit. Like,
yeah.
You know, and I just, I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's just me. I just don't think I understand how people can just let themselves shut themselves off like that. My brain don't work that way. ADHD is a thing. And so,
Yeah, I know. So is autism.
oh, yeah. Like it is just one of those things where like I look at this, I look at something and I'm like, why? And I'm like, oh, there's the rabbit hole.
Yep. And I think too that is that's another issue with like the decreasing literacy skills in this country, is that people aren't curious about things anymore. They don't want to they don't want to know why things work, or how things work, or how we got here, or what things used to be like. It's just assuming, it's assumption, it's being content with exactly. And there's a difference between being like content with where you are now and being complacent. I feel like people are very complacent, and they don't really care about a lot of things. And to an extent, I can understand. There's a lot of things going on right now to care about, and it is sometimes exhausting. But that's also like why we read. It's why we create. It's why we tell stories. It's because there's always been lots of things to care about. And not only should we be bearing witness, but we should also be documenting. And I think people just, they disconnect from what's going on around them.
I agree. I think, it is difficult, and it does feel like a lot. I've always said, take a breather, step back for a second and then get back in the fight. Because I think that it's once you start to really disengage, you're not doing yourself any favors.
Exactly.
And so like, I guess another question I have is going back both to like your novels themselves. So when you decide to write, like I know I've always heard there's books that are more plot driven, more character driven. What do you prefer to write?
I prefer to write character driven books. I find that plot driven books, from a writing standpoint, confuse me. Plot driven books, usually there needs to be like a really thick thread kind of leading the plot through the entire book. My plots tend to be pretty thin threads. And the things that happen are connected to that thread, but it's it branches off. It expands outward, and it usually explores the characters. It explores their relationship with themselves, their relationship with their surroundings, their relationship with other people. And I find that to be more compelling to write, versus something that is a little bit more plot driven. I would love to be Tolkien, and I would love to say that I could write something like Lord of the Rings, which is a little more plot driven. And I love reading Lord of the Rings, but I don't think I would enjoy writing something like that.
No, the amount of, I think the amount of detail and everything that he went into is to the point where I'm like, I'd be too impatient. Right?
Yes.
Creating your own languages and like the workings that's already tough enough. And so to see someone like Tolkien, because he seems to be pretty much a flagpole almost, like how to build a world that is engaging and keep people interested, and it's constantly there's a correlation between lore and story.
Yes, absolutely.
And I think there's because of that, the combination between there, some places are more like, one of my favorite games is Elden Ring, love it, but Elden Ring is almost completely lore based.
Okay.
Like, you are going to learn everything about it through, if you collect a certain item, it'll tell you a little bit about the story, and it's just up to you to piece it together. I personally like those. I like those kind of things because I love learning about them. Hell, I just found there was like an 8-hour lore story about Elden Ring. Yeah, I just found it. Yeah, I sat there and I was like, I am going to try to listen to all this.
Right.
But it is, or I'll just find the 15-minute version.
Right, yeah, exactly. The spark notes.
I know, I know, like, I'm like, I know that's not great, but to a point where I'm like, huh. And you can't do that on overnights. You can't do that on overnight because at 2 a.m. I did that one time watching Ancient Aliens, and the next thing I realized, I was like, oh shit, it's 4, and they're just so it was not good. But yeah, and I think, is it hard to write lore, like lore in a story?
Yeah, I mean, for me it is. I kind of, I'll plant lore nuggets in my narrative. The lore in my world is not essential to my characters and their stories. It's more just kind of a way for me to make the world seem like it has existed for a long time, give some depth to it. I don't actually have any lore created aside from one thing. My world, my fantasy world, was created by dragons, and those dragons have been trapped on they've been trapped in this it's a country, but it's kind of like an island. They've been trapped there for millennia. That's the only like lore piece of information that I do know for sure. The hows and the whys around that, I have like shadows of kind of in my imagination, but nothing concrete, because lore is very complicated, and that, like you said, so many details to keep track of, and I don't have that capacity in my brain.
No, I don't either. I've tried. Like I've tried, and and that's interesting enough. I can't think of both the writing. I'm going to use Elden Ring as an example again, because George R.R. Martin actually helped with the creation of that game.
Oh, did he really?
Him and, oh my gosh, I have to look it up. I like, it's gonna bother me. It was George R.R. Martin and how am I gonna say this wrong? Hidetaka Miyazaki.
Okay.
So both of them went together to work on that. Yeah, to work on Elden Ring. And it was interesting because he didn't want to work on making anything else, but like, but it was really cool because I've seeing like what a world can actually, what when you can hunker down, I guess, and put a world together. Because I think world building is tough.
Yes,
I think world building is so tough. I actually have a couple workbooks just to kind of help get in a grasp of how the culture, how it's run, currency, like
right.
It is so not easy.
It isn't.
Did you struggle with that when you were writing your first one a lot?
I did, mostly because with my first book, I was kind of just throwing things in, and I realized I needed to be a little bit more intentional. There needed, like you mentioned, currency. So I would just kind of create different levels of currency and just use them kind of willy-nilly. But then I realized about halfway through, I was like, I should probably be writing these down. I should know like what these pieces of currency are. I need to know where they fall on the scale of like, most expensive versus, whatever, or most value, least value. And once I got to that point, it was like, okay, I'm being a little less reckless with my details, but there's lots of things that go into world building. It some of it is even details. It can be the population size of a specific region. It can be, the clothing that they wear. It can be, is there more magic in one country versus another country? And if so, why? It can be religion. Like there's so many different things that contribute to world building. And so for me, it's really been what world building feels organic to include in this moment. And if there isn't any, then I extract it and I wait until another time to put that information in, because exposition in a novel has to be done very carefully.
Okay. I mean, just because it can just kind of lead to being boring, I'm guessing.
Yeah. I mean, you think about, chapters in the Lord of the Rings, for example, where you have 10 pages describing why this particular forest that the hobbits are in is so magical, or why Tom Bombadil can control the Barrow Downs. Like there's so much exposition, and I guess in the Lord of the Rings you would need it, because otherwise you would be confused as to what's going on in some of those scenes. But like, too often I think we feel like, oh, my reader needs to know this, and sometimes they don't. Sometimes they really don't need a 5-page detailed explanation of who built this fortress and why.
Right. No, and that makes sense. I mean, it's one of those where you don't want, the last thing you want is for your reader just to be like, okay.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want them to do that at any point. And if that is their reaction, then they did not need that information.
and that's fair. Another book series that I felt like struggled with this. I only read the first one because I was just not going to put myself through the rest of it, and that was the Twilight series. And I don't hate the Twilight series. Like I don't hate the Twilight series. I really don't hate much of any. No, I do. But like like wait,
Never
no,
mind.
I'm lying to myself. Like, but when I look at the Twilight series and I'm like, there was things in there that I didn't mind, and maybe because maybe it's also the movies that kind of threw me for a loop when it comes to the book as well.
Okay.
And I think that becomes a problem with people too, is because let's say they go watch the Sorcerer's Stone, right? And then they go read the book and they're like, whoa, this is different.
Right.
I think that skews people a lot. Maybe it's just me.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, it's the same with Game of Thrones. The first season, not so much, but once we got out of the first season, the writers really did play fast and loose with entire plot lines of the Game of Thrones book series. And I think that can, especially if people are starting out with the series and then they go to the books, I think it can be really jarring.
Mm-hmm. No, that's actually definitely fair. I mean, and I think, and this is actually just a personal question. How much is like the source material when it comes for you? How much does that correlate? Like if they're doing, like, let's say they do like an adaptation of something, how much does I need to keep it to the source material is it for you?
That's a really good question. I would say 90% of the time, I tend to lean more on the side of being a purist. Not because I expect an adaptation of a book to be word for word the same, but because I do feel that so often there are beautiful things that are just missed if something deviates too much from the source material. However, I will say I think that there are times when deviation from the source material, it actually works. Lord of the Rings, for example, Arwen is not a recurring character in the trilogy at all. We see her from Frodo's perspective one time in the Fellowship of the Ring, and then never again. The movies, she is a recurring character, and it gives us context for why Aragorn isn't interested in Éowyn. Without the context of his relationship with Arwen, we don't understand why he's not going for Éowyn, because also in the movies, they really amp up this kind of like almost love story between Aragorn and Éowyn that really doesn't exist in the books. It's very one-sided in the books. But I think that works. I think that plot device, it works. They're adding her character in more than in the books, but I think it makes sense. As long as it really is keeping to the spirit of the source material, I usually am okay.
That makes sense. And then I know, like you mentioned before, like our Arwen is one that, if I remember right, she's the elf. It's been a while, so she is the elf that ends up marrying, I believe, Arwen, correct? Okay, yeah, because she gives up her immortality.
Yep, she does.
Yeah. Yes, because it's that necklace or whatever that basically allows them to have immortality. Do they ever say, so like, if I got
the necklace? The necklace isn't what allows her to have
Oh,
immortality. The necklace is her symbol. Her
yeah.
name is Arwen Evenstar, and that necklace is the Evenstar.
Oh, okay. Well, that bums me. I was really hoping it's a necklace. I would plop that thing right on and boom. I'm moving.
That would be a cool concept, though. The idea of like a piece of jewelry that gives someone everlasting life. That's kind of
Oh
cool.
yeah, it'd be great until you realize you'd probably. It depends, because like my brain immediately went to like Mother Gothel.
Right.
It's like,
Yes.
it's like
Okay.
if all of
Yeah.
a sudden I'm just like I take it off to go shower and I'm like, oh shit, and just
Yeah.
turn
Exactly.
it
Right.
off. You know, I'm like, oh damn, I screwed that one up. But I don't know. Like I feel like yeah, it would be a really interesting concept. And I do agree, because I do agree, like some things I'm okay with deviating a little bit, or something new. If a show or a book or a movie can do something new that I'm like, okay, that's interesting.
Mhm.
Honestly, I'll go back to the Star Wars sequels. There's a couple things in there that I actually didn't mind.
Yeah.
Like the whole concept of Rey actually not being anybody was honestly
Yes.
not a bad idea.
I love that.
Especially because I don't know why people got mad over it, because I'm like, we've lived in an era where the Old Republic had people that were just, some were just Jedis. They didn't
Yes.
have to be anyone,
Exactly.
you know. But they said they turned her into a Palpatine, which to me just made it worse.
Awful. I
It
hated it
was
so much. I
like,
did love the concept of Rey and Ben being a dyad in the
oh
Force.
yeah,
I thought that was cool.
I didn't mind the dyad. I honestly would have been more okay with them not having like any kind of romantic tension at the end. But
Sure.
it didn't feel like there was much there anyways. Like it felt
Yeah.
like Ray is trying to hold her a hand out, and he's just kind of just like, nah, I'm good, fam.
Yeah. Yeah, a little. Yeah.
Like, until the very end when he's like, oh, okay. So yeah, I would say that, and you know, that's I cannot stand forced romances.
Sure.
They're
Yeah.
probably in my opinion, one of the worst. I don't want to call them tropes, but like they are, feel like a trope. They're like one of the worst tropes. It's just a romance that's not built. And I've noticed that it seems to me, at least seems to me, that we have gotten better with, especially when it comes to like male characters, female characters, especially not having to be romances. They don't have
Yeah.
to be this. The woman does not have to be the object of attraction for a character. It can be at some point,
Right.
sure, but it doesn't have to be at first. And I'm glad that I'm
Exactly.
seeing that more and more in media now.
Me too.
Like and I think that's, you know, it's a huge step, because this is also leads to, you know, people, the representation that you mentioned earlier, being huge, because it is such a thing that is political, which in reality it's just people existing.
Right. I mean, and we see this issue pop up too, like in the first Avengers movie, or is it the second Avengers movie? Whichever one it is. It's one of the ones that Joss Whedon worked on, but Black Widow's character development, whichever movie it was, entirely revolves around her not being able to have children. And so she can't be in a romantic relationship with Bruce Banner because she can't have kids. And it's like, thank you for reducing this incredibly badass, amazing former Russian assassin, now special agent in S.H.I.E.L.D. Thank you for reducing her to nothing more than reproductive organs. Like it was so insulting to see that. And you know, he got a lot of flack for that. He's known for
should
that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
He deserved every bit of it.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. Like, that could be an internal thing for her. That I mean, it always makes sense to me that Bruce is a character that would look past that.
Right.
Like, it doesn't make sense that he would just be like, "Nah, fam." Like, but like, I don't know. That is kind of just some bullshit. Like, and I don't like that. I don't like when they just reduce. It's kind of like they do it with. You'll see a lot of, I've noticed this too, because I have a friend of mine who talks a lot of gaming stuff and as well. And he brought up the fact of a lot of Black characters are good, but when you really look at them, they're just stereotypes.
Yeah.
You know, what is it? One of them they brought up was like CJ from Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. Is he a good character? Sure, I guess, but is he really just a stereotype? Yes. It's when those characters break out of the mold that people all of a sudden have an issue with.
Right.
You know,
I mean, that's why Finn was such a groundbreaking character in The Force Awakens, because he broke that mold. He's a stormtrooper who, you know, is force sensitive, and I love Finn. They did him dirty in the last two movies. They did him so dirty. Finn deserved better.
Finn is, it's so bothersome because he does, like, he starts like there's so many ways you could go with the sequel trilogy, and just ways that could do these characters more justice. Poe's another one too. Poe,
I know.
Like, honestly, also because you have Oscar Isaac, and like you can't have Oscar Isaac and just
right.
You know, that's what bothered me so much with it. Granted, it's not like it really hurt his career or nothing. He still plays like one of my favorite characters, which is Miguel O'Hara in the Spider-Man Into Across the Spider-Verse. Which is another really good representation of a Black character, which is Miles Morales.
I love those movies so much. I love those movies so much.
they're so they're so good in so many different ways, and just
they are.
Visually, the way that Miles is portrayed. I love the commentary on how Miles is just not Spider-Man, despite the fact that he is. And there's still people in that fandom that are just like, no, he's not Spider-Man, he's Miles Morales. Peter is Spider-Man. And I'm like, you guys, like, these are like 40-year-olds like bitching about this.
It's like they're missing the entire fucking point of the entire first movie. That is the entire first movie, is that, yes, Miles Morales is Spider-Man. Like, come on. That's why we have all of the different Spider-Man. We have Spider-Gwen, we have Spider-Pig, we have the Noir Spider-Man, we have Peter Parker. They're all Spider-Man. Like, that's the whole point.
The fact that we had people who were more okay with a cartoon Spider-Pig over a Black Spider-Man just goes to show I'm like, this is a you problem.
Yes, exactly. This is a 100% you problem. Yes. Oh my God.
It's so bad.
It was,
and I think that's the part that will always ends up frustrating me the most, is how much that representation is needed. We see it in characters. I know, like, the cartoon that did it the best, in my opinion, was Static Shock. Back in like the early 2000s, that was able to really make the whole social awareness, social progressiveness shown. And, you know, it's funny how now in this era we'd get so many people, and I don't gotta tell you because you already know what the people look like, who would be the first ones to be like, oh, why were they have to make them so loud? You know, and it's just like there's a one of the neighbors in my apartment complex has this sign that he holds over, and it's like, everything woke goes to shit. And I was like, first of all, you spelled shit with an asterisk or something, so technically that's wrong. But like but I'm like sitting here, and so, you know, could I engage with him on this? Absolutely. Would he try to find a reason? Absolutely. Would it go nowhere? No, because I don't argue with morons. But
exactly.
But it's just one of those where I walk by and I see that kind of stuff, and then though, like, it's just like, you know, I find it very disheartening, the inability to look beyond yourself.
Right.
And, you know, that's why I'm glad that you mentioned with your book that it is an Assassin's Guild of women, because I do believe even when it comes to assassins, I mean, fuck, I could use Assassin's Creed, for example. Women do things differently than men do. So, you know, they're going to feature, they're going to do things that might be, you know, I mean, fuck, Black Widow is a prime example of this.
Yeah.
Like, I don't see Bruce Banner getting in a dress, tying himself up on purpose. Like, like knowing that he
No.
can just like, yeah, could he rage out? Sure. Do I want to see Mark Ruffalo? I think it'd be kind of funny. Well,
Oh yeah.
yeah, it's just, and I'm glad to see that like the representation is there. That's the big thing.
Yeah.
And having more authors talk about it, despite the pushback or anything like that. It doesn't matter what the pushback is. Like,
And honestly, if someone is going to push back over the fact that I have queer characters in my book, I have Black characters in my book, I have characters that are, coming from other cultures, then I don't want them reading my books anyway. They're not my reader. They're not the demographic that I want engaging with my material.
No, absolutely not. And it is crazy when you really think about it, because it is like those same people grew up on this whole notion of like treat
Right.
everybody fairly, and that's how it should be, and
Right.
the same material. Damn, our world's really transforming into Fahrenheit 451.
Oh my God, it's so bad. It's so bad. It really, I mean, you were talking about this, and I was thinking about like a lot of the criticisms of the Star Wars show Acolyte, for example. Like, there's definitely legitimate things that we can criticize about that show. There's some writing issues and stuff like that. But people like they hated the representation, like that there was any representation of people who weren't white. They hated that there was a like central queer relationship in that movie, and the main character is Black, is two Black twins. And I genuinely, I don't, that is not what makes that show like, it just bothers me. It doesn't make sense. It's irrational. It comes from a place of just this deeply ingrained prejudice that is nonsensical, because there isn't an explanation or justification for it. It just, it makes no sense. It makes no sense.
It's a sense of entitlement.
Yes.
Like I am entitled to have characters that look like me, but everybody else, it doesn't matter.
Right.
And with the Acolyte, I agree. There's some legitimate problems with the Acolyte, and I've had my own gripes with them too, especially some of the decisions. You're just like, okay.
Right.
I've always said, like, I think one of my sounds so weird, but like one of my favorite criticisms I usually give is the fact that the Acolyte feels like an end game of like the High Republic. We should not be featuring this so early on when we don't know anything about the High Republic.
That is a great point.
Yeah, it's kind of like watching, like, I don't know, the end of Lord of the Rings and then being like, I don't know how any of this got up to this point.
Exactly.
So, like, and so that was my biggest issue with it. It's not saying I don't think the show is bad. I think there's definitely some highlights. I'm not gonna lie, the fight scenes are amazing in that show.
They're so good. Oh my God.
Oh my gosh. And I liked Chimere. I think Chimere became my favorite character in there. Chimere and Soul, both of them became my favorite character.
Oh, I love Soul.
Yeah,
love
and
Soul.
I so good. But it is in the issue that they had about just the fact that it's two Black twins or whatever, and it's so wild to me. And I was just, when I was having a conversation with my friend or whatever, and I was telling him, like, because with the person we were talking about, I was like, the reason why I don't engage with people like this is because they're honestly not smart enough to get it. No. They are. I'm at the point where I'm done, like, saying like your opinion, like, oh, my opinion matters. Like, I'm like, no, you have to start putting up sources and start talking about it.
Exactly.
Like, I don't, like, if your opinion is like straight up like, I don't like Star Wars because of like writing wise, or the fact that the lightsaber did blah blah blah, whatever, that's fine. I can't really say about it. But if you're gonna try to tell me that it's because this character is, the character is Black, then I'm like, okay, well, your opinion now is based off of prejudice.
Yeah.
And it's like they don't get it because it's been so normalized to be this way.
Exactly. It really has been. It has been normalized. And like there's this new like Star Trek show coming out, Starfleet Academy, and it also has a lot of diverse representation. And I was watching someone react to the trailer. I had to turn it off because the stuff he was saying was vile. It was absolutely disgusting. And I was like, And he used the whole phrase, because we got to do the woke thing. We got to be able to press all the woke buttons. And I was like, none of you even know what woke actually means, first of all. And number two, Star Trek has always been this way. Like, what Star Trek are you watching? Because Star Trek has always been political and progressive. So this is a you thing.
The best stories are progressive.
Yes, they are.
Nobody watches conservative stories. They don't take conservative media because it's boring. Mm-hmm. It is the equivalent of eating a boiled chicken.
Yes.
Like, and then being like, damn, that's some good boiled chicken. Nobody does that. The best ones are ones where they fight against the status quo. And you know, they have something to say about the world itself. And it's crazy because it's like on an era of people who grew up about super, like there are people who legitimately were calling the X-Men woke. And I was like, oh my God. Like, why is the X-Men woke? And I'm like, I just want to walk up and be like, buddy, we're about to go dip into some comics here. Like, let's do this.
Tell me you've never read a Marvel comic book without telling me you've never read a Marvel comic book. Like, if that's their reaction, because comic books have always called out corruption and fascism, and like they always have. It's baffling to me. I really don't understand it. It doesn't make any sense.
And you know, the funniest part about it is it's the same people too that they don't read them. They'll call themselves fan. I'm like, I'm starting to believe that whole gatekeeping thing started feeling like a good idea.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Like, I'm not a gatekeeper, but like I'm not a gatekeeper on some things.
Yeah.
Like, there's a couple things I am, but it comes down to like food. It's so funny. It comes down to like the way people cook food. Like sometimes like, I watch it on like TikTok. I watched this lady. She made a salmon in a dishwasher, and I was like,
what?
In a dishwasher. Yeah.
She put what?
Salmon, like a full salmon, in the dishwasher. Like she's like, yeah, you put like lemons and like the seasoning, then you butter it, and then you seal it up, and you put. I will send it to you. I'll send it to you. I haven't favored it because I was like, holy fuck. But like she put it in she's like, yeah, I put it, you know, you just set it for on high for like 145. And I looked up and they showed the lady and I was like, yep.
Figures.
Yep, that's about right.
That tracks. That tracks, yeah.
Yeah, I just saw that and I was like, no. Like if I found out that you made this salmon in a dishwasher, I think two things are happening. Either I'm going to dump it or I'm swinging. Like this
yes.
Like,
I was
like, some people just do things, and I'm like, no. There's a reason why it's called dishwasher and not a salmon placer. Like
exactly.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Yeah, my God. It was bad. But like, and that's why like that's the only time that I'm a gatekeeper. That's the only time I'm a gatekeeper. Yeah. But other than that, yeah, it's just the introduction of seeing people different than yourselves.
Yeah.
And the world having different experiences. Mm-hmm. And so that's why I'm glad that people, telling stories about from different perspectives. And it, when you can look, I don't know, it sounds weird, but like looking after you, when you start recognizing, the representation, you learn to normalize to look past the representation and check out the character as the character is,
right.
it finds it way more interesting.
Yeah.
It's why, it's the reason why I look past the character of Anakin and I'm like, yeah, Anakin's always been a problem. Like
yeah.
Anyone who thinks that like he was not a problem was like, nah, he always was.
And that's, I think, another issue too, is that people forget that multiple things can be true at the same time. Mm. Like Anakin has always been a problem. That is true. Anakin was groomed by Palpatine. Also true. Anakin was fractured and wounded and traumatized. Also true. All of those things are true, but they do not change the fundamental fact that he has always been an issue. He's always had those problems.
And the thing is that not only that, but Anakin highlights the issues with the Jedi Order.
Yes.
Highlighted the issue with the Jedi Order. Honestly, if you can use it as a way of, I don't like using in terms of a like toxic masculinity, but it is in a way kind of,
Right.
because there's aspects to that. Holding your feelings, not bringing it up to addressing them, let them just go, because they really all they want are soldiers in reality. When you think about it, when that's the Jedi Order has been told multiple times that this is not what we are.
Right.
You know, and then it all culminated into the fact that also people forget Anakin and Darth Vader are not two separate entities.
No,
they are the same person. Darth Vader is just Anakin when his inhibitions have fully realized.
Yes.
And I think people forget that. They think that they're two separate people, like Bruce Banner and the Hulk, but they're like, nah, Bruce Banner and the Hulk are two separate entities in one body.
Exactly.
So Anakin and Darth Vader are exactly the same.
And I think that is another kind of like significant. It's another significant point, because I think there are a lot of people, a lot of toxic people who relate to some of Anakin's struggles, and they don't want to feel as though they too are connected to Vader. But the whole point of Anakin is that these toxic traits are what led him to become Vader. And like that was a conscious decision. Even in the Kenobi show, when Anakin and Obi-Wan are kind of facing off and confronting each other, and Anakin tells Obi-Wan, "You didn't kill Anakin Skywalker. I did. I'm not your failure." Like, such a powerful moment. I love that show. The Kenobi show is in my opinion flawless. But like I really loved that line, because it is true. It doesn't mean that Obi-Wan didn't make mistakes, because I think he did.
No, he definitely did. He
definitely made mistakes. Yes.
He was always the worst person to train Anakin. It should have, I mean, if he wouldn't have died, it would have been Qui-Gon. And Qui-Gon would have pulled the best out of Anakin.
Yes, he would have.
But yeah, I agree with you though. Like, wholeheartedly, that ending there. I'm not gonna lie to you. The first thing I think of the Kenobi show is like the little chase scene with Leia.
I know.
I'm like, this is so goofy, but I can't even be mad at it. Like, she's just like running past, and you can I love watching the actors who are trying to not catch up to her.
I know. It was very funny.
It's so funny. But it is like that moment where Obi-Wan finally is just like realizing, and he starts throwing the rocks, and like multiple of them. There's a part of me that feels like the reason why they had that scene where he was just chucking rocks at him is because there's that moment in the Force or the Last Jedi when Rey's lifting up all the rocks.
Right.
And so I feel like they wanted to show what like a true Jedi Master could do with it, which I always thought was kind of funny. And it's not any fault of like Daisy Ridley, but it's like it felt like watch that scene again and use it with the perspective. They don't think they told her what was happening. So it's kind of looks like, okay, like he's looking at like, I mean, these rocks are all over and her eyes are kind of just like going back and forth. Like, I have no clue what's actually going on.
Right.
It's like when Obi-Wan, when Obi-Wan just starts like chucking the rocks at him, just like brap, brap, brap. And I'm like, damn, okay. Like, I'm like, okay, like Darth Vader's a piece of shit. No, you should definitely hit him. But I'm like, okay, damn, okay, no, damn. Like, you could slow down a little bit. Like, right. But I do love that. I love that whole feeling. And what's like really interesting about it too, I don't know if you pay attention to it, you can see that bit of when they're showing his face and they flash it between blue and red.
Yes.
And it was like that last bit of like Anakin trying to tell him, hey, this is not on you, bro. This is all on me.
Right.
And like that's why I don't have a choice. I have to kill you.
You're right. Right. And that's like, it's so interesting too, because part of what leads him to become Vader is that he blames Obi-Wan for everything. He's constantly talking about Obi-Wan holding him back, Obi-Wan not trusting him. He's complaining about the council not making him a Jedi Master. And for him to have that accountability.
Council did kind of do him really dirty with that.
Oh, they did. They for sure did. But like in this moment, he's taking accountability. He's saying that no, none of that was actually the problem. It was all in here. It was all me. And it also in a way is very sinister because he's essentially saying, I have always been Vader. This was who I was supposed to be, and Anakin had to die for me to be there. Like it was, and I think it also obviously it points to the A New Hope when Obi-Wan says that Darth Vader killed Luke's father. I think there is that as well, that connection. I don't know. I thought it was beautiful. I really loved that
No,
scene.
I do too, and that's why I loved when I loved it when he's just the same. He's like the same way I'm going to destroy you. And at that point, like when he just like Obi-Wan's just like, yeah, I'm not doing this. Like goodbye, Darth.
Yeah.
And Anakin just is just. I think my favorite part of that is the fact of his voice flipping between the back and forth. And when he screams Obi-Wan, and it's both down the line, and I'm like, yeah, that to me was the full realization. Oh, there's no going back for this person anymore.
Doesn't he even say in that conversation something about the next time I see you, I'm going to kill you or something like that? I don't remember. Maybe I'm making that up. I might be hallucinating.
I just remember him saying the same way I'm going to destroy you, and then Obi-Wan starts crying and he's like, goodbye, Darth. And that's what
right. I do remember that.
Yeah, and he's like, Obi-Wan, and he's like screaming that, and like it just the split down the middle, and I'm like, damn, they're really it's tragic because it's just watching a person really just double down on their beliefs.
Yes.
Like double down, double down, and then eventually to the point where it took, Luke to be like, yeah, dude, like what the fuck are you doing? Like
right.
And for Vader to finally kind of be like, shit, what am I doing? But I know that there's more to it because there's the Vader comics and all the other stuff that he's experienced. I do remember in one of the comics, I feel like this was years ago. There's a guy I watched called Stupendous Wave. And he does like a lot of the comics. I used to watch Star Wars Theory until no more. But like he did what did he say? About there was a stormtrooper that remembered fighting with Anakin. And he remembered how great Anakin used to be. And it Vader just got silent. I think he ended up killing him.
Yeah.
Because he had no choice. There was no
choice.
He had to. Like, yeah, it's really sad. Like it's just because it's just watching a tortured soul at that point.
It is.
I think that's why what makes it so much. That's also why, like, partially why it pissed me off that Luke pulled the shit he did. So I think that's what bothered me the most was about the Star Wars sequels was Luke becoming cynical. I don't mind Luke becoming cynical. Like, there's just a lot. Like, it's just I saw when he saw Snoke in the mind of Kylo. So he was just gonna off him, and I was like, that just does not seem like something that seems out of character to me. I have a friend of mine who's a legit, like, there's a friend of mine on my page. Actually, I hung out with him a couple weeks ago. He's a lore master in Star Wars.
Okay.
And even he was like, yeah, it doesn't make any. It just doesn't seem like something we would do.
And I think that's one of the central issues with the sequel trilogy is that I think that Disney and the writers, they approached the sequel trilogy too much from we're going to do something new with these characters mindset, because so much of what came before in like the novelizations and the books and stuff, they called legends. It was no longer canon. And so you lose so much of the context of what got us to, oh my gosh, Return of the Jedi. So like, because of that, I feel like they really didn't respect the history that had come before in this series. Because I completely agree with you. I don't mind the idea of Luke being cynical, because we know from, previous books and stuff that Luke at one point actually turns to the dark side. So like, we know that he is capable of being more than what we have seen him to be. But I definitely, I agree. I don't think that he ever would have even thought about harming any of his Padawans. I don't think that ever would have happened.
And I have one final question for you. This is one that I see a lot of people a lot of times when I'm doing, especially when I'm doing gaming stuff. Do you think the whole writers nowadays are just lazy? I want to know what you think about that whole statement, because I get that a lot from people where they're like, "Well, the writing just sucks. Writing's just bad. The writers are just lazy. They just don't know what they're doing." And I'm always interested to hear what someone else has to say.
I do not personally subscribe to that perspective, especially when it comes to the movie industry. I think that writers' hands are often tied. They are given parameters that they are supposed to keep to, and they have to make certain things work within those parameters. And all of the writing decisions have to be approved by like the producers and the director and everything. So it all has to go through an approval process. And I say that too, because, for example, I don't know how much of this you've seen on TikTok lately, but apparently Adam Driver and an Oscar award-winning screenplay writer, they were working on a Ben Solo movie that was going to take place after The Rise of Skywalker. Oh. It was called The Hunt for Ben Solo. And a bunch of people at Lucasfilm were on board. They loved it. They thought it was great. But there was a certain person at Disney that gave the thumbs down. He said, nope, we're not going to do it. And the reason was because they didn't understand how Ben Solo could be alive. Maul can come back from the dead. Boba Fett can come back from the dead. Palpatine can come back from the dead. But Ben Solo can't. Arguably one of the most consistent characters in the sequel trilogy, but they can't bring him back. So when I say that I don't think it's the writers, I think it's the executive producers and like the director and stuff. That's what I mean. I think that writers actually are trying to create content that viewers are going to like. But the people at Marvel and the people at, Star Wars and Disney, for whatever reason, they have decided what they are and are not willing to bring into these sagas. And I don't blame the writers. I blame the executive producers and the director.
That makes sense. And like, do you think that, does that can happen for authors as well? Like if you have like someone who's like, I don't know if they're like an editor or like someone who kind of reviews over and they're like, I don't like this, and they just hand it back?
It can. Editors, if it's a developmental editor, they will usually just give their opinion. They will give their opinion on like how to improve things, how to fix grammar and stuff like that. Publishers, on the other hand, they absolutely will reject entire manuscripts over tiny things. They don't like the name of the main character. For example, they will reject an entire manuscript if they don't like the name of the main character. I've seen like stories of authors who they received query letters from agents and publishers who basically said, if you were to change this aspect of the storyline, we would consider publishing your work. And it basically means taking the most unique aspect of the story and turning it into something that has already been done. And like, it is an aggravating thing for writers. And it's why I chose to self-publish, because I get to be true to my content. No one is going to tell me that I need to change an aspect of my story. So I admire the people who go through the query trenches and they try to be traditionally published, because I would be too angry at having agents and publishers telling me to change my work, because usually the thing that they are suggesting is taking something good and making it worse. It's almost never taking something that needs improvement and making it better.
That makes sense. That does. And because I feel like I see that a lot, especially like obviously I'm correlating it to the gaming space, where a lot of times a lot of developers get stuck pumping out games that they're not 100% happy with, for the fact because shareholders above are like, nope, this is what we want in them. We got to do this, this, and this, and then they're just kind of left with like some bread and butter.
Right.
I'm just gonna start calling it the boiled chicken one.
Yes, yes, the boiled chicken process. Yes.
But I want to say before we finish up here, where can they find where can they find your book?
Absolutely. So my book is available on Amazon. It is on Kindle and Kindle Unlimited. So there's an ebook available. There's paperback available. If you don't want to support Amazon, you can also order directly from me. If you go to my website, www.writingasajourney.com, you'll be able to find links to purchase directly from me. I can sign it and personalize it and mail it out to you.
I will also make sure that those you want to send me a link to that. So what I'm going to do is I'll put that in the descriptions
Awesome.
for all the clips as well.
Absolutely.
And as always, for myself as well, guys, you can find me on TikTok, YouTube, Twitch. I do put these up on Spotify. I've been lazy. I'm not gonna sit here and hold y'all. I'm like there's so many places to go. So you guys know where to catch me up. But already, everyone, I appreciate you being here.
Thank
JD,
you.
I really do. And for everyone else in here, you guys know how it is. I'm Taylor from Afro Official G, and I will catch you all in the next one.